Well, good evening, Cedar Falls. Welcome to our regular council meeting for the evening of Monday, November 20th, 2023. I'll now call this meeting to order with a roll call from Madam Clerk.
Schultz.
Here.
DeBoer.
Here.
Cruz.
Here.
Harding.
Here.
Ganfield.
Here.
Sires.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
All members present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And if willing and able, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For our first item, is there a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes for November 6th?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any from the public? Yeah, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. Madam Clerk, do we have any agenda revisions tonight?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Item 15 is being withdrawn from the agenda at the request of the applicant.
Thank you, ma'am. So we will not discuss item 15 tonight. Strike that. For public, we have no special presentations tonight, so we'll move to public forum where speakers will have one opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes on topics relevant to city business. Would anyone wish to speak in public forum tonight? Evening, Reverend Blackloud. Just name and address for or city for the record, please, sir.
Michael Blackwell, and I live in Cedar Falls.
Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. I am thankful for each day more than ever since being on my deathbed on January 2021, when doctors at the University of Iowa Hospital gave me less than a 10% chance of survival. I am thankful that 2.5 years later, I am well enough to teach, preach, write, speak, and begin as an advocacy to the poor and oppressed and dispossessed. I am thankful for my long-term memory concerning the murders of John F. Kennedy, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., and Bobby Kennedy, and how governmental agencies were fraudulent in their investigations and what they knew. From 8 to 12 years old, my burgeoning social awareness matured and concretized. I am thankful for my education at Wesleyan, Morehouse, Yale, Boston, and Harvard University, and the many renowned folks I was privileged to meet and claim as associates and/or friends. I am thankful for the inaugural Fall Summit of the Cedar Falls Human Rights Commission last Friday to hear about its efforts to promote diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in the Cedar Valley. I am thankful for students who protested against the intentions of the Board of Regents to terminate DEI programs, departments, rename them, reassign professional staff, and/or fire others. I hope more protests could not only be at these Regents universities, but also in communities across the state. I am thankful that the possibilities of the future, when more ethically conscious people, organizations, businesses, and elected officials will come together to dissent and to exercise their constitutional rights to protest for right. I am thankful, in the words of the Harvard-educated law school graduate and die-hard abolitionist, James Russell Lowell, echoing down the corridors of time and through the mouth of Dr. King. Truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the throne, yet that scaffold sways the future, and behind the dim unknown standeth God within the shadow, keeping watch above God's own. I am thankful I can hold on to the saying, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. On some questions, cowardice asks the question, and on some positions, cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? There comes a time when we must take positions that are neither safe nor politic nor popular, but we must take those positions because conscience tells us it is right. There are so many things for which we can be thankful this season, and I look forward, as God allows me to live, to seek justice wherever I may be. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Blackwell. Does anyone else wish to speak in public forum tonight? We'll go with Reverend Stummy first, and then Bob Manning, please.
My name is Reverend Larry Stummy. I'm pastor of St. Paul Lutheran Church on Pleasant and Willow, and I live at 1008 Lois Lane in Waterloo. It's very hard to follow the eloquence of Dr. Blackwell, but I want to first thank you for your openness. On May 15th of this year, Dr. Blackwell and I made a decision that we would continue to talk to the people, the political leaders of our community who have the authority and the duty and the responsibility and the privilege to make this a better place for all the citizens. And so we have been meeting at all the city council meetings since May 15th, except when I wasn't able. And our purpose has always been the same, not out of hate, but out of love, especially for those who are not privileged and by the chance of nature and by their birth have been living in substandard housing, have been deprived of some of the privileges and cares that others. And so far, the response that you have given has been encouraging. And I don't want to build you up too much because there's so much more that we have to do. And I encourage you in the future to continue to your diligence on this task to make Waterloo Cedar Falls a better place for everybody to live, especially the weak and the poor. I think it's our responsibility as political leaders of the community to do just that, to make sure that we're protecting and we're honoring and we're making the right road for people who have been oppressed and who have not had a chance. There is a great depravity, a disparity between the whites and blacks in our country and in Waterloo that has been brought to attention in many ways. And so our goal is to bridge that disparity a little bit, make it a little less prevalent so that there will be more equality. We believe that's an important message, and that one that if we don't do it, will lead to a very, very dark future for our country. If we take care of our people, especially the weak, and take care of those who are oppressed and those who are misunderstood, if we take care of them and treat them as our brothers and sisters because we're all equal, there's no difference between us, whether we have a degree or whether we live in a slum. We are the same people, and we have to keep that same goal and that same purpose in decisions we make. And I encourage you to continue to do that, continuing to work with the leaders of Waterloo, with the many wonderful organizations that are in the Cedar Valley, and with the powers that are here. We have some of the 500 best, the top companies in our own community, John Deere, Target, and the packing house and things like that. We have the resources here. So if we can just have the vision to make this not the worst place to live for some people, but the better place and eventually the best place, it'll be a benefit to everybody, including the industries, including the cities, including the people who live here. Thank you, and may you have a blessed Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Reverend Summy. You as well, sir. Does anyone else wish to speak? Okay, Mr. Manning. Just name and city for the record, please, sir.
Hello, folks. My name is Bob Manning. I live in Cedar Falls. I'm the executive director for the Cedar Valley Housing, Cedar Valley House Building Association. Just wanted to talk for a couple of minutes. I know that it's not on the agenda, but have things changed for y'all in the last 10, 15 years? Are you doing the same things that you did 15, 20 years ago? Has the computer changed your lives? Very much. Technology comes along, and that's wonderful. Also, the prices for commodities have gone up. And certainly those people who had the opportunity to buy a $25,000, $35,000 lot here in Cedar Falls are certainly been advantaged by where the market has gone. To get 125 front foot on a house now, or 150 feet, is going to be a cost in the neighborhood of $125,000 to $150,000. And some people have the funds for that, and that's great, but many of the middle class are not in a position to do that. And that's why the density thing that was presented through the planning and zoning and was to come before you tonight, and something that the Cedar Valley, the Cedar Falls Economic Development Corporation has dwelled on also, is that things are not the same in the cost structure and the building costs. And we talk about wanting to have affordable housing, and but that's not going to work. If we had a demand for the big lots all the time, that's great if you're a developer and selling those lots, but that's not the case, and it's expensive for people. How do we expect our kids and our grandkids to get into housing now at the cost that it is? It's tough, and we have to look at ways, and one of the ways is going to be more attached housing. We don't have nearly the percentage of attached housing here in the Cedar Valley area as they do in Cedar Rapids, and certainly in Des Moines. My daughter and son-in-law just moved into a new house in Waukee, and they have a 65-foot lot with a house on it that was in the 300,000s, and that's great because they were in a position to afford that. But that's tough for a lot of people, and so we'll be talking more down the road about density and higher density versus lower density, and again, my one of my son-in-laws here in the Cedar Valley was just bent on having a third of an acre. That was a big goal for him, but it wasn't in the price picture for him when it was time to write the check, and he settled for something less, although they have a beautiful home and two of the grandkids you just couldn't help but loving. Again, we'd like to have the sprawling ranches that many of us grew up in, or we knew friends or parents that had such, but it's not the case that we have anymore, and we have to be creative and come back. And what would be a master plan in 2019 is totally changed now in 2022, 23, and 24. So I just offer that as food for thought tonight. There'll be more discussion on that down the road, and we all need to go into that with an open mind, mine included. So thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. Any other speakers in public forum tonight? Seeing none, then staff updates. Mr. Gaines, do we have any updates for tonight?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask Chase Shruggy to give some update on some of our construction projects with regard to street closings and openings.
Thank you, Mr. Gaines. Regarding Main Street, I wanted to provide a brief update with opening the traffic. We're looking at from 6th Street south to 12th Street being open by end of day this week on Wednesday. Next week, it will likely that 18th to 21st would be open to traffic. That would be mid to late next week. And also just another reminder, as the holidays approach us here, refuse collection, since we will be closed on the 23rd and 24th, Thursday and Friday. Individuals that have normal collection on Thursday will be picking that up tomorrow, the 21st, and individuals that have normal collection on Friday will be picking that up on Wednesday. So,
Okay, thank you. Also, a note that we have goal setting coming up. Our first session is going to be the 27th from 4 to 7 p.m. over at the community center. This will be the first in a series of sessions that the council, who will be seated January 2nd, they'll begin discussing through priorities and topics for the new year. And so this first session will be an introduction to the process. If you're curious about how goal setting works, this is an excellent chance to learn about that and meet the facilitator as well. There won't be public comment during that period, but certainly be insightful to listen to the conversations. And then the remaining dates will be posted as well online. So I hope you can join us for that over at the community center at 4 to 7 p.m. on the 27th. Moving on, for special order business, we'll go into old business, which the first is item 2, repassing over mayor's veto of resolution 23-366, being a resolution rescinding resolution 22-360, approving and adopting the Imagine College Hill Vision Plan. This would require 5 aye votes to override the mayor's veto. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded, and open for council discussion. Okay, seeing no discussion, any from the public? Mr. Mayor? Yes, please.
Thank you. Just want to, again, express my support. I know we're talking about overriding the veto, but express my support for the vision plan. I've had further conversations with students on our campus, a lot of conversations about this specifically, and just hearing the same thing. And I know the plan's not perfect. It's very big. It's very broad. And there's been some, talk about development in other areas of town just beyond what we know to be the core College Hill area. And that to me just sounds like we're just concerned about names at that point, because we want to see those developments and those ideas for development in those neighborhoods too, not just the core Hill district. So I fear my comments meetings ago when we talked about this may have just, alluded to just talking about that area, but having development in all those areas is good, and this is a great starting point for that. So certainly the conversations I've been having with our student leaders and our students on our campus are still very much supportive of the vision plan, and I just wanted to make that known. So
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ackmeyer. If any other public comments? Okay, none, then back to council. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Cyrus.
we were informed by Kevin Rogers that we had to rescind the whole thing. I truly want to focus on the College Hill area. It starts to get too broad, and it will be weighted down by all the other insignificant things. I don't want to call them insignificant, but all the other details that will have to be worked out. If we can just narrow this, which I would have liked to have just narrowed it when we first brought this back up to the College Hill type area, I think it would have worked out a lot better. I know that Noah has talked with other people, and I think if we all look into just starting with the College Hill area, that'll be the best for everybody. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Cruz.
Thank you. I guess we're at a position here that it's all or none, from what I understand. I do like the ideas that Councilman Cyrus is bringing up here, the components. And we've addressed some of those components already. One that was discussed at the last meeting, I think last meeting, maybe before, the split zoning on like 4 or 5 lots right in the center. That can be a referral at the end of the meeting here to address that right away and discuss that, which I'd be prepared to do if need to. But as was said by several, that this visioning was much more broad and went into areas that aren't College Hill, and bringing it down to smaller bites is, in my mind, a preferred way to deal with studies. You get a study presented to us, and there's 32, 35 things, and by adopting it, we're adopting them all. and I don't think that's the way we should do it. So I think repassing over the veto is the thing to do at this point, and then go into the components that we want to implement, have discussions with student groups, specifically for the areas like Dave was saying. So that's just my comments.
Other comments? Councilor Harding?
I'll just be brief. I don't think we should override the veto. I think we should leave the plan in place. Obviously, I guess it just feels like semantics a little bit. We put it on the shelf for a couple years, and that's what we told staff to do. So if we only told staff to look at certain aspects of it, I don't quite get the all or nothing thing. And correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, we could just direct staff to look at specific issues from the plan. We don't have to do the whole thing, do we?
Tonight?
No, I mean, tonight it's all or nothing. But I mean, if the vision plan is in place, we do not need to do everything in the vision plan. We can just look at specific aspects in specific areas, correct?
Yeah, that's council's discretion.
So the notion of all or nothing to me is, I never understood it that way. So I get that there's a argument between form-based and not form-based, and it suggests some form-based, and so that's fine. If that's the reason for wanting to get rid of the plan, because it says that, then that's fine. But I'm not for getting rid of the plan. Furthermore, if we get rid of the plan, I just have a feeling the plan's going to be back in January because of the election results. So,
Any other comments? Seeing none, then it's been moved and seconded to rescind, or excuse me, to override or repass over the mayor's veto, and requires a roll call vote.
Five voting aye, 2 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So the override does pass, and that rescinds the Imagine College Hill Vision Plan. That takes us over to item 3, which is passing ordinance 3045, amending Chapter 26 zoning by removing Section 26-196E, special parking standards relative to allowing adjacent on-street parking to count towards shared parking requirements in the downtown character district upon its third and final consideration. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
second.
Moved and seconded. Open for council discussion from the public. Seeing none. So moved and seconded. Requires a roll call vote.
Six voting aye, 1 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And so that does pass as well. And it takes us over to the consent calendar, which these items will be approved on a voice vote in a single motion without separate discussion, unless someone from the public requests that a specific item be considered separately. Does any council member request to pull an item from 4 through 10? Any from the public wish to pull an item 4 through 10 for separate discussion? Always happy to do so. Okay, then is there a motion to approve those items 4 through 10?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, and all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. And it takes us over to the resolution calendar, where these items will be acted upon by a roll call vote on a single motion without separate discussion, unless someone from the council or public requests that a specific item be considered separately. We've already removed item 15, so that won't be discussed tonight. It's withdrawn. Does council request to pull any other items from 12 through 16?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Sires.
number 12, please.
Number 12.
Mr. Mayor, number
Yes.
16, please.
Okay, so 12 and 16. Any from the public additional to that? Okay, seeing that none, then is there a motion to approve those items of 13, 14, and 16? No, excuse me, 13 and 14.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, and requires a roll call vote.
I'm sorry. I thought I had done it.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And that takes us over then to item 12, which is the resolution amending resolution number 20,502, establishing a University of Northern Iowa student liaison to the City Council and developing certain procedures and imposing certain requirements for such position. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Councilmember Cyrus?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Noah for the time he's put in. He's a good, diligent worker, and it was just an oversight, I believe, that he wasn't allowed to participate in the committee meetings. And I'll always look forward to having a liaison on the council, even though I only have 2 meetings left. But I wanted to thank Noah, and I wanted to pull that, and if he has anything to say, I'd like to hear from him.
No obligation for that, but you're welcome to.
That's okay. I just wanted to thank City Attorney Rogers for putting this together too, and look through it, and I appreciate the added, being able to come to standing committee and everything, Councilman Sires and I had talked about. So I really appreciate that, and it'll allow me to, sort of be here and contribute in ways that are appropriate to the business of the council in regards to students and UNI students. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Other comments? Okay, seeing none, then it's been moved and seconded for that resolution to amend the student liaison position and requires a roll call vote.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And that takes us over to 16, which is a resolution approving and authorizing execution of an extension of a waste or yard waste management service agreement with T&W Grinding relative to management of the city's compost facility. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Open for council discussion. Councilmember Ganfield.
Yeah, appreciate it, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to get some clarification. I'm not certain who on the staff could look at it, but on attachment A, regarding the pricing, I just wanted to understand, what does the fuel escalator fee cost mean? Currently in the attachment A, it says it's $2.50 per gallon, and diesel's running closer to about $4.50, and there's a 3% escalation for every 25% deviation from that $2.50. So I just want to understand how much we're going to be on the hook for with this renewal. Sorry if you don't have it in front of you.
What? Oh, that's all right. And I won't have a whole lot of answer for you. Sorry, Council, Mayor. So that escalator is just from the original contract, the increase in fuel costs. How much we're actually going to be hooked for is kind of on how much they're going to do. So it's kind of how much product is out there and how much through this next year they'll be using. So a little bit of a variable, but that is what that's in there for.
Do you remember offhand the actual base? So the base fuel price is $2.50 per gallon that they use.
Yep.
And then it's 3% increase per quarter?
I'd have to review that for sure. I don't know exactly. I can get that to you, but I just don't have that on hand.
And I know this contract is probably coming up due pretty soon. Can we get those numbers before we approve it?
I have just a 1-year extension on that contract. Next year will go to RFP.
So really it's what we've been doing already?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, so this is our last extension. Next year we'll have to go out to a complete redo, and they are kind of the only one in Eastern Iowa that does this, so we're a little, but we can get those numbers to you regardless.
I'll double check as well. I appreciate that. Thanks.
Yep, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council? Any from the public? Okay, then it's been moved and seconded to authorize execution of the extension of the yard waste management agreement with T&W Grinding for management of the compost facility. It's moved and seconded, requires a roll call vote.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So that passes and takes us over to item 17, which is in ordinances. It's passing an ordinance amending Chapter 9 Fire and Prevention and Protection of the Code of Ordinances relative to installation of post indicator valves upon its first consideration. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Open for council questions or discussion? Seemed pretty straightforward to me. Thanks for bringing that forward, Chief Solondek. So if nothing, anything for the public? Questions, comments? Okay, moved and seconded and requires a roll call vote. Councilman Schultz?
Yeah, I'm sorry,
Click it hard.
I had it again.
The bottom, there you go.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That takes us over to bills and claims. Is there a motion to approve bills and claims for November 20th?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, then requires a roll call vote. Councilmember Schultz?
Yeah.
Right. This system's not working right for you tonight?
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Moving over to, so that passes and moves over to council updates and announcements. Would want to note first, just recently we've had the passing of two of our city's representative citizens. So Bob Beach passed away last month, and just this morning I learned that Judy Cutler had passed away. She'd been a longtime civic advocate. If I remember right, Bob Beach was a representative citizen for 1992 along with Rosemary, and Judy had been representative citizen for 2001. Those are people who really are the epitome of what we want to be as Cedar Falls residents. A lot of times they're unsung heroes, but have done so much for the community. Would especially like to note for Judy's passing that she'd been instrumental in the founding of Sturgis Falls Celebration and the Cedar Falls Civic Foundation at the time. So their legacy certainly will live on, and we mourn the loss with their families and friends. Do you have any other updates and announcements from council?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Sires.
it's more of an update. Today I met with Dick Eads and Chase Schrage and Ron Gaines out to the intersection at First Street and Union Road. There was a pretty big accident there not too long ago. And we talked about the sight distance and those kinds of things, and Chase said he was going to look into those things. And I checked with one of the property owners that's on one of those corners, and I said, we'd like to get something, maybe if he would meet with the city, we could get a little more sight distance in one of the corners, and he was willing to meet. So I would like to see a little something done with that intersection out there. I don't think it needs a referral at this time, but I would like to see something move forward to make that intersection a little bit safer. That's all. Thanks.
Any other updates or announcements?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Cruz.
I guess it's more of a question. Today I was downtown for lunch, and I pulled in a 3-hour parking spot, and I was wondering, are the QR codes, Director Schrage, on, or where are the QR codes that direct people for parking lots and that sort of thing? Are they just in the parking areas, or are they out yet, or are they going to be eventually on these parking signs to, like?
I believe most of the QR codes are on the public parking lot signs themselves and near the kiosks.
Okay.
I don't know specifically exactly where you were at, but.
Well, I was 2nd Street, and I thought it'd be kind of nice in the corner of the sign to put a QR code, so that would direct people to parking lots and that sort of thing. I think we can do that. Because if somebody's looking and they're finding that all the 3-hour parking on the street is full, then they could look at the QR code and get directed into parking lots, maybe. Just some thought. I don't know if we need a referral to do that or just consideration.
Are you referring to all of the adjacent side street parking that's on the street? Those parking signs?
Yeah. I mean, it'd be nice to have that because it's parking, and somebody says, well, the street's full. Now where do I go? You see a QR code up there and it might say scan for parking info. I think that would be a nice value added for the city for downtown. So, do I do a referral to get that? Or what?
For Mr. Gaines, do you need a referral to move with action on that because of the staff time involved?
Let us look into it, and then we can just send out an update to the council and see what we find out with regard to stickers and how much it would cost and how big
how big of a project it is. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay.
Other updates or announcements? Seeing none, then council referrals.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Cruz.
Thank you. I sent out a email picking up on where we left off on the right-of-way native plantings, and wanted to ask if we need to do a continued referral on that, or what would we do if we want to eliminate the native plantings between the sidewalk and the street.
So for that committee meeting that was presented at, what was the outcome of the committee? I haven't seen a report from that.
We got an email.
The email was the outcome,
Okay.
the council's request.
All right, so there's no further action then, as it is now. Does
Okay.
council wish to, you can put forward a referral for
That's,
action?
thanks for that info. I would like to make a referral to continue discussing the change in the right-of-way native plantings.
And for change, meaning to eliminate?
Eliminate.
Discussion to eliminate prairie plantings in the right-of-way. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded, open for council discussion about having the referral. Who'd like to start us off?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Dunn.
Councilman Cruz, is it just the one property that is of concern, the one that you had the pictures of?
That's one that I'm very familiar with because of that being in my ward, and so that, yes.
Okay, and I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, has that property, which I believe, is it Hartside, or what's the address?
Yeah, Hartside.
Okay, has that one been on staff's radar as far as compliance or anything like that?
It definitely has. Yes, staff has worked with that property owner a number of times after complaints, and they are pretty frustrated about continuing to be contacted. But at this point, they have met the 24-inch height limitation. As Councilmember Cruz indicated, they do not meet our current ordinance in terms of the 18-inch setback from a curb or from the sidewalk, since their native plants in the right-of-way had been there prior to that ordinance change. But they are meeting the height and helping with a site visibility triangle.
Okay. I guess my concern is that there's many reasons why folks do native plants, including obviously, I think this body's mentioned pollinators several times, but there's also the slowing of stormwater, which coincidentally, after we had the last discussion regarding native plantings, the next day I went down, I went a couple different places to shadow staff, but one of them was down at the wastewater treatment plant, and spoke with Tyler down there about how an influx and you know, when it rains, and then at that time, we obviously this year we haven't had very much rain, but we had a small rain that week before, and I could see the graph of how that water comes in at a higher rate, which can cause strain to the system and makes it less efficient and things like that. So I guess my hesitation for this is, and also we have the bioswales that the city has put in, which also are meant to slow down storm water, among other things. So that's my concern, is if we just have one person, I'm not saying that there's not others, but it sounds like there's one main concern, and so we're going to take the whole 40,000 plus people and because of one property. And I feel like the benefit to having the native plantings far outweighs the cons, whatever you find those to be. And I also appreciate that staff has been working with the folks that seem to be concerned for council and some citizens. So that's my concern with this further conversation.
Mr. Mayor.
First, Councilor Harding, and then Councilor Case.
So I'll direct my comments not to whether they're good or bad, just to policy making in general. And I don't support eliminating based off of 1 to 4, you know, or a handful of problems when we have 19,000 or so residences here in Cedar Falls. So I do think that we could collaborate on, you know, fixing the problems and making things better. But I don't think it's good to make ordinances and eliminate all when there's only a handful of them my entire 4 years here, I've actually not had one complaint on right-of-way native plantings in my ward. That doesn't mean there haven't been in other wards. I just, again, haven't had any in my ward. And so I think you guys, again, I'm out after 2 more meetings. I think you should talk about how to manage it, how to handle it, and make it better. But just to eliminate it because of 1 or 2 people and make a law based off 1 or 2 people, that's, in my opinion, not good policy making. And if you just want to eliminate it because you personally don't like it, I'm okay with that, but just say that. And I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying, you know, say what it is. Don't eliminate it because 1 residence out of 19,000 is messing it up. So,
Councilmember Cruz.
Thank you. In this in all these cases with the right-of-way, it's city-owned property. The citizens have total privilege to take their entire yard and make into native plantings if they wish. We have an 18-inch setback currently from the sidewalk into the yard, which I think should be 24, because if we allow 24 height on the prairie grass, it dies and falls down into the sidewalk. But that's a side issue. We're not taking away privileges from anybody if they really want to do this. They've got their entire lot they can do. Many ordinances are made for the minority situation. I had this discussion with Director Olson before he left.
Well, I don't want to get too much into, like, we're talking about whether or not we should have this as a continued discussion.
Okay.
So.
Well, I think it's worthy of a discussion. I'd like to see us do approve the referral and discuss further at our next council meeting so we can wrap this up before the next.
Okay. And would be okay with having that in Community Development Committee, sending it to that
Sure.
for the discussion? Okay. So I'll friendly amendment then. I'll say it's moved to continue discussion to eliminate prairie plantings in the right-of-way through a Community Development Committee discussion. Does that sound all right?
Sure.
Okay, great. Yes,
Mr. Mayor, the only thing that I'd just like to clarify is I don't know what additional information staff would bring back. So I think the additional information may be in the form of an ordinance and what that looks like by eliminating.
Okay, that wouldn't necessarily
what
have to
would
be
be-
brought up at the next meet, at a Community Development Committee. If they're just looking to discuss as a council member, I don't see there has to be additional staff information provided.
Unless there's a request for something specific that you'd like for staff to bring forward, which we can do.
Well, if I could amend my referral then to say exactly what Mr. Gaines is saying, that we have a proposed ordinance.
So move to have a proposed ordinance to eliminate prairie plantings in the right-of-way?
I mean, that's essentially what the whole thing is saying.
question on that. Does that make sense? Because then you're going to have a different council voting on it. You're going to have 3 readings. You're going to have 2 of those readings with this council, and then a 3rd reading with a different council.
That's fine.
No, you wouldn't.
It would?
No, because he referred it to a committee. So if it's referred to a committee, the committee would make a decision, but it wouldn't go to council to make any kind of ordinance changes until the next meeting after that. So we'd only have one chance at it.
So we'd have one, but I thought his friendly amendment was to bring it back as an ordinance instead of bringing it to committee, so.
Just referring to what
But-
Mr. Gaines said.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
that's
the
fine.
additional information you're saying, Mr. Gaines, is basically a sample ordinance? Is that what you're?
That's what I was suggesting, just because I don't know what additional information from the last committee meeting that we would present unless there's additional requested information.
And then staff could recommend that, or bring forward the ordinance, and then the committee would recommend that to council for approval.
Yeah, I guess there is one component, if I may.
Certainly.
Mr. Rogers brought up a recommendation to amortize out, or something to that effect. Is that the right term? Make a target end date of something like 1st of May or something like that?
The question is when ordinance changes affect property rights and restrict them, you know, we have to be very careful with that. There's a way to do it. If you amortize over time, the period within which the folks have to comply with the new ordinance. It's doable, but then it becomes, you know, what's a reasonable time for folks to comply? And I guess I don't know what that would be for plants.
Well, you just start to mow them 1st of May or whatever when they grow.
Well, it sounds like we're getting more into the discussion of the
Yeah.
topic rather than
Well, if-
whether this
True.
referral. is ordinance
If
to go
they want to come with an ordinance, they would need that component, I believe, Mr.
forward.
Rogers.
We could talk about it in the session, though, like, make a decision what that would be in the
Okay.
session.
Question, Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Please.
Doesn't goal setting start next week? You could talk about this at goal setting instead of at the next committee meeting, and then you would know if the next council supported it, and you could bring forward an ordinance then. It just doesn't make sense to me to do a committee meeting with this council when we're only going to get, as Susan said, one shot at voting on it. Talk about it at goal setting, and if you guys want to bring an ordinance forward, then bring an ordinance, if it's fully supported, bring an ordinance forward for the new council. And it's more efficient, it saves time, and you'll know, because 3 seats are going to change. And so to me, it becomes inefficient to do it at a next committee meeting when goal setting's next week. So if you really want to have the committee meeting, I'll do it, but it's not, in my opinion, the wisest course of action, because you don't know who is going to support it, because the people aren't here that are going to be voting on it.
One other timing issue, Mr. Mayor, is this is a very short week with Thanksgiving and everything coming up. We have to have everything in for the following council meeting by Monday. I just don't know that Mr. Rogers is going to get to drafting the ordinance by Monday.
Thanksgiving's canceled. Sorry, dude.
So do we have enough information in order to vote on this motion?
Yep.
Okay. Then it's been moved and seconded, and I'll take that as a friendly change. Moved and seconded for a community development committee meeting to bring forward a proposed ordinance to eliminate prairie plantings in the right-of-way. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, I'm hearing an overwhelming no for nay, so you have to?
Yes, for the record.
Okay. What's that? Okay, so raise your hands for aye. 1, 2. Raise your hands for nay. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so voted down 5-2. Any other referrals tonight?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Cruz.
The Cedar Falls Economic Development Group, I believe, is supposed to be delivering an update by the end of the year. I'd like to see that brought forward at the next council meeting or committee meeting, so that we can use that to evaluate how we move forward with funding for Grow Cedar Valley, Cedar Falls Economic Development, and we relate that to our own economic development department in the city.
Okay. We wouldn't be able to compel the CFEDC to present because they're an outside entity, but we can certainly
It says
have the
in their
councils
agreement.
for a certain date.
It does, by the end of the year.
But it doesn't mean necessarily by tomorrow or next week or.
I'm making the
2 weeks from
motion.
now.
If we get a referral, we can ask them.
Anything out of order with that, Mr. Rogers?
I'm not sure I understand what the question is.
He wants to have this EDC bring forward a report before goal setting. Is that correct?
For the next meeting. I mean, it's due by the end of the year anyway, per their agreement.
But all we can do is request.
Yeah, the council wouldn't have authority to compel a private entity to come on a particular day. Certainly, you can make your wishes known.
Right.
I do know that, Mr. Mayor, I believe Grow Cedar Valley is scheduled for the next meeting, at committee meeting.
So just to request, to bring forward a council request to have CFEDC give a presentation at the same time? in the
We can
report?
contact them and see if they.
Okay, that's fair. So is that okay for a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, is there a second?
Do we need a motion?
Do we need a motion or?
Well, yeah,
city-
because we're asking them to do something that's not part of what their agreement says.
But if,
That is what the agreement says?
It does not. It says end of the year.
Oh.
I want to be very clear. It could be December 31st and they're complying with their legal requirements.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Is that an audit? Will that be the books of that? Because if it's just another presentation, it's a waste of time. Is it going to be their financial? Because that was part of the agreement that the last contract we had with them, they couldn't use monies for employees' salaries.
And I don't believe that's part of it's not an audit,
Well,
it's a report.
It's to get results and see what results are there. No harm, no foul.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, please. Do we have a second? We don't have a second. I need a second to move forward.
Second.
Okay, so Councilor Dunn.
I'm comfortable with the current arrangement of by the end of the year. If that's the current, I don't need to, I don't want to say force, but.
Compel.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, it's not a force, it's an ask, if I recall the way it was phrased. Ask them to present when Grove Cedar Valley presents.
Okay, so do you have that written down, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Okay, can you repeat that for us?
To have the Cedar Falls Economic Development Report give an update by the next meeting.
Yep, and request them to, because we can't have them. We legally can't have them do it, or force them to. Yes, Councilor.
Just a question, if they don't present before the end of the year, are they in breach of contract?
They would be, as I understand it. Mr. Rogers?
I'd want to look at the contract carefully, but if they've agreed to provide a report by the end of the year, that could be a breach. Whether it's a material breach or not is another question.
So it sounds like it's in their best interest to do this anyway.
Sounds like it to me.
Okay.
I have a question. Does anybody have the verbiage of the contract, and does anybody know if their last presentation counts because it was the second half of the year, if that counts as the presentation for this half of the year? I mean, there's a lot of things, unless you have the contract in front of you, they've already presented twice this year. They might have already done there too. So this might be a moot point. They might have already met their contractual obligation. And also, furthermore, like I said, I don't have the contract in front of me, so I'm not going to ask them to do something that I haven't studied the contract and know that they need to do.
But if there is updated information that could be provided, we can certainly request that they present at the same meeting as Grove Cedar Valley.
I think the last meeting was to sign the contract of some sort, an updated contract. So it wasn't a presentation per se, like Grove Cedar Valley is going to give a presentation on contacts and results and that sort of thing. I would think it would behoove us to see what CFEDC is doing if we're funding them. We should get a report. And if it's due by the end of the year, there's 2 council meetings to do it in before the end of the year. So it makes sense to me to request that, point it out.
I'd like to review the contract and see the meetings and see what we've done first, just to make sure that we're not requesting something that they've already done. That's all. I'm just not 100% sure of where they sit. That's all.
So do we have enough information for the presentation request?
Well, I guess I'd ask if anybody on staff could take a peek at the contract. It's not that hard to pull it up right now, I would think.
Well, if you're looking at me, I have no idea how to find that contract right here on this spot right now. So this wasn't part of any discussion we expected. I have the contract somewhere, but
okay,
pulling it up right here on the spot, I'm afraid I can't do it.
I'm-
And let me add one more thing. The council, I think, anyone watching this can understand council's wishes here. I don't know that we need any formal action. The city administrator said he'd contact them.
Okay.
I'm not sure of the value of anything. We can't send somebody out to drag him in here. So.
Well, I'm just quoting, appreciate your comments, Mr. Rogers. I'm just asking to see the presentation per the terms of the contract by December 31st. And to do so would be one of the next 2 council meetings that we have left before the end of the year, unless we have a special meeting for some reason, but I don't think we want to do that. And if Grove Cedar Valley is coming forward, it would be logical for them to do so as well. That's just what I'm saying.
So is any other information needed before we vote on the referral? Because the referral is on the floor, up or down. So if seeing none, then it's been moved to request Cedar Falls Economic Development Corporation present a give a presentation to the council prior to December 3rd, prior to goal setting.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I just, if say you voted nay for this referral, the discussion that has already kind of been touched on could still happen, and that entity may still come forward.
Right. We have to
regardless.
withdraw the referral then. There is a referral on the floor, and it's a valid referral.
The person who made the referral has to withdraw it, right? Okay.
So would you be willing to withdraw, or do you want the vote?
Let's have a vote.
Okay, so can you please repeat the motion, just so we have it on record?
Request Cedar Falls Economic Development Group to report update by next meeting, which would be December 4th.
Okay. Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, show of hands, aye. Two, show of nay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that's voted down. Any other referrals tonight? Seeing none, then I would entertain a motion to, oh, actually, yeah, so anything else? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.